asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we have decided on the study of this text called Laghu Vakya Vritti for this retreat. Now actually speaking, this text is very interesting because it is giving us a lot of information on Vedanta and also yoga psychology. Richaji wanted to know about yoga. So both are there in this particular work. It is a work on Advait basically, Advait Vedanta. And it is a work by Shankaracharya. It's an abridged version of Vakya Vritti, which is a very, very profound text dealing with the Mahavakyas of Vedanta. And the Vakya Vritti actually has 53 shlokas, verses you can say. But this abridged version has only 18. So for our retreat, I thought this would suit. And what is the subject matter of these texts? See, these are very ancient texts, like unimaginably ancient. 4,000, 5,000 years back. But of course, when Shankaracharya has written this, it is from the 8th century AD. The Upanishads are 4,000, 5,000 years back. And these texts are based on that. They are auxiliary scriptures, prakarana granthas, which means the Upanishadic ideas in various forms in an introductory way have been put into these texts. Because Shankaracharya saw that the Vedanta, which is the Upanishads, the knowledge of the Upanishads, see, it is not available just like that for everyone, isn't it? A certain amount of preparation is required in order to acquire that knowledge, because it is not objective knowledge. It is not the way you study a physics text or a mathematics textbook. It's not like that. So he created a number of smaller texts like this one, which are called auxiliary texts or prakarana granthas, which help us study which introduce the Vedanta to us and help us study it better. So these texts also, see, because it's coming from the mind of Shankaracharya, they are very profound in themselves and very clear and very, you can say, they actually stop your thought process at certain times. They are giving us such profound knowledge. So if we have to penetrate into this, we require fundamentally a quiet mind. See, this is a rare thing. Although we may feel that, well, it should be the natural state of affairs, but it's not so. Our minds are very, very busy with a whole lot of things all the time. And we are so identified with the thought process, all this appears something impractical, something antique and, well, even obsolete to many people. But these are the most important texts because they are talking about your true being. They are talking about yourself and about your real unchanging nature. Is there something like that? That itself is a huge question, you know. Can there be something which is unchanging in me? Because everything is changing, isn't it? Body has changed so much. Mind is constantly flitting from one object to the other. Is there anything that is pristine, clear, pure and unchanging in me, which I can really call me? Otherwise, I'm nothing but a mass of all kinds of emotions and thoughts and all this happening all the time. And most of it is not under my control also. It's happening by default, as it were. The unfolding of my sanskars. But what is it that is permanent about me? These texts are exploring that. That fundamental dimension of our being, which alone you can designate as I. Because it is unchanging. Everything else about you is like the clothes we wear, you know. Every day a new thing. Every day you wear new ideas. Every day you have new thoughts. You assume new identities. You put aside old identities. Isn't this what we do? So behind this apparent self, there is something very, very profound, real. What we mean by real in Vedanta means that which does not change. And something which is of the nature of pure consciousness. Because everything else is a kind of creation of our mind. Please see. It's an assumption of our mind, is a presumption of our mind. It is a concoction of our mind. But this has nothing to do with mind. It's a science far beyond, it's not psychology that we are talking about. We are talking about something far beyond mind. But we are trying to understand it through mind, isn't it? Through a text like this, through thoughts and words, through concepts. So Vedanta is like this. It is going to provide you the food upon which you are going to understand the nature of the soul. Only Vedanta has this capacity. Any other text, if you go to any other text, well, it is talking either about your body or mind, isn't it? And this is definitely not a belief system. It's not asking you to believe. It's asking you to explore and investigate. It is asking you to find out for yourself through a first person inquiry. You know what a first person inquiry is? जब हम किसी टेक्स्ट को वो टेक्स्ट जो बोल रहा है उसको बिलीव ना करके खुद ही एक्सप्लोर करने की कोशिश करते हैं, तब उसको फर्स्ट पर्सन इंक्वायरी करते हैं. I will try to find out for myself if there is something called a pure consciousness behind my mind. Not because this text is saying it or some teacher is saying it. No. I will try to find out if this is in my experience. If you track this particular thing, you will see it is always in your experience. Your consciousness, your awareness, by default it is pure, it is pristine, it is behind the mind. Its reflection falling in the mind causes mentation, causes your thoughts to come out alive. It enlivens your thought, as it were. But what enlivens your thought? It is this pure consciousness standing behind the mind. It is of the nature of pure awareness. You are fundamentally aware. Isn't this true? Or are you fundamentally thought? You must think and ask for yourself. There is no need to believe these things. Find out for yourself, then you won't even require anything else. You are fundamentally aware. In that awareness, there can be a thought process through which you identify with a body and hence with the world of objects around you. But when you don't explore it in this way, in the first person, you will believe, no, thought is fundamental and objects are real, really real, and awareness, well, it's an occasional idea. It will appear like this to you if you don't explore it in the first person. So you see, this is a very important, you can say, scientific technique of Vedanta. Here there is no dogma, no doctrine, no belief system, no commandments, no such things. It is only first person inquiry. Vedanta Vichar, analysis of your own experience of life, your own existence. If you find it out by yourself, you will enter Vedanta. If you don't find it out by yourself, no text can usher you into Vedanta, I am telling you. Nobody can convince you of it because it is not a matter for thought or logical conviction. Although yes, it is very, very logical, I can tell you that. It is analysis of your own experience. What is the fundamental reality about me? क्या हो सकता है? It of course can't be the body because I can see the body as an object. Body is something I am wearing, like I wear my clothes. Can it be thought then? Can that be the fundamental reality about me? No, thoughts are always changing. Today I have one set of thoughts which will change tomorrow. What about my emotions? They are so, well, you can say forceful and strong in me. Very important part of me. No, they are also mine. They are not me. They happen in my mind. Then what is the foundation to all this? The substratum, the common denominator of all these experiences. You will see it is only your awareness. In awareness, through a thought process, you identify. Without your awareness, can thought mean anything to you? Tell me. See, what is the difference between sentience and insentience? Now, this book or this table, they are insentient. They are not self-aware. So the great thoughts this book may carry means nothing to the book, but it means so much to us, isn't it? Because we are self-aware. In my awareness, a thought process finds acknowledgement, finds purpose, finds meaning, finds profundity, isn't it? So my awareness is fundamental, that means, not my thought. Once I'm able to catch this in the first person, whether you do it through meditation, whether you do it through inquiry, you can combine both the processes, you will come to a very basic understanding of how you function. Awareness, pure awareness, that itself is called the Atman. That is the real I. And the rest of all my thoughts and emotions and ideas and meditations, my perceptions, my interpretation of this world of objects, all of this is what then? All of this is secondary. It comes after my awareness. Isn't this true? Is this right or not, what I'm saying? Check your own experience and see if this is true or not. That is why Vedanta is so very important then. Because it is pointing to the source of your own being. You are not even your thoughts. You are not even your emotions. So as long as you live only in the world of thought and emotion, which is what most people do, you will get only, you're living a partial life. The thought world has become more important than the real world. My thoughts have the capacity to dominate my mental field in such a way, I just live in my thought world with my ego, with my emotion, with my assumed identities. And I never paid the least bit of attention to pure being. We are capable of living like that, you know. Most of us are living like that, yes. In fact, it's called Jiva Srishti in the scriptures. When you live cozily in a world of your making, not in the real world. So it is only Vedanta and Vedanta Vichar. It is called Existential Inquiry. Today, you know, all this terminology has come. It has come in also into our university textbooks for the simple reason, this is the most important science. What's the point in knowing everything without knowing who I am? Tell me. And without knowing how my mechanism functions and how I should handle this world, if I know everything about this world, it is simply meaningless. So this is the science of consciousness, human consciousness. It's the most profound science. It's a science, you see. Have I used the word God or anything so far? It's a science. Vedanta is the science of your consciousness. And it has a technology, a means by which you understand that science. That is called yoga. Yoga is not, when I use the word yoga, I am not talking of the asanas, the physical exercises. That is all very elementary yoga. But when we use the word yoga, it means the connection with your deepest self, with your true being. That which helps you find that connection is yoga. So it is a technology of inner, you can say, exploration and unfoldment, which gives you the science of Vedanta. And if you practice yoga in everyday life, you will one day you will understand this knowledge by itself. Please remember, you cannot understand Vedanta from outside. It's an unfoldment of your own awareness that will finally occur. So it is again a first person understanding, research, inquiry. Please see, all other sciences are in the third person, isn't it? Somebody will teach you what they thought about it. Only Vedanta is first person. So it is about the first person also. It's about you. And how can you deny? How can you not want to go into this? It is something so forceful and strong and so scientific that anybody who has a little, the inward turned intelligence, I would say, will at once connect with these ideas. So that is why the text which we are going to study is something quite apart from every other kind of study. It has to go along with clarity of mind, along with a certain amount of yoga, and along with a certain amount of spiritual discipline, because it is not an intellectual exercise. My own awareness, if it has to come to the forefront and dominate above my thought world, it requires a certain discipline of mind. Otherwise, I'll be busy with my cozy thought world of my creation, and I will think that is the reality. Until, the world has its own way of taking us towards the truth by giving us blows. So, if I inquire this and find this out by myself, I will be in a position to handle the external in a very mature way. I will be deeply balanced. My mind will be quiet. Such a big gain that is in today's world. Just think of it. My mind is in my hands. I only think positively. Because my mind is in my hands and my emotions are very sweet, loving, positive. So no all sorts of emotional issues in my head, and my awareness is crystal clear. So my joy is within myself. I don't need to hunt it in 100 different objects. So I will not invest too much into the external. I'm happy by myself. Then I can do whatever I want in this world. I collect the things I want. I create the relationships I want. I live my life as I want. But without this inner knowledge and inner balance, how can you live maturely? Isn't it obvious? So that is why these texts become very important then. Because this is the only literature in the world talking of all this. Please know this. Nowhere else is consciousness studied in itself as pure consciousness. Everywhere else, the term consciousness denotes the thought process, the emotion, the will, the meditations, all of this jumbled up together, and it's being called consciousness. But not in Vedanta. Vedanta, when it uses the word consciousness, Atman, Brahman, it means pure awareness. Without even a vritti, without a single thought in it. Just pure being, pure consciousness. So this essentially encompasses the subject matter of the Upanishads, and these texts, the Prakarana Granthas, will help us to understand better and better the Upanishads. If you have any questions on this, we will take it up in the evening class. Just now, let it be just concentrated study of Vedanta. Because you see, the most important thing in Vedanta is, this study should create the vritti in your mind. That is the purpose of Shravan. Shravan, the first step of Vedanta, means that it has created the right vritti in your mind, because it should come without disturbance, without distraction, right? And then the second step of Vedanta becomes, it has become such a strong vritti in your mind that you dwell upon it. It clears all doubts, and it becomes a strong force within you, this knowledge. And the final step is you meditate on what you heard, so that it becomes part of you. The vritti conforms to reality in your mind. That is nididhyasan. See, it started with vritti, but finally it becomes reality through meditation. You taste the state of pure awareness within yourself. Then only you will understand what Vedanta is, how powerful a system of thought it is. So this has been the effort of all seekers, practitioners of meditation, that they want to know the reality of the self, the reality behind this world of manifestation. They are not two different things. The self and this cosmos are deeply connected at a very deep level. And that relationship again you have to find out through meditation only. So that is why self-knowledge is the starting point. You know, in one of the Upanishads, the Mundaka Upanishad, it is said Brahma Vidya Sarva Vidya Pratishtham, which means this Brahma Vidya, it is the source, the basis and the support of every other Vidya. Because without knowing the I, how can you know anything else? You know, everything else is wearing a name, form and function as per my equipment. Do you recognize this? Now I want you to observe this idea. What we are discussing here, please think deeply about it. Now I am telling you that everything else is wearing a name, form and function according to my equipment. See, I see this as a green tree. If there was a cat here, it would see a grey tree. So is the tree green or grey? Any other creature, lots of all sorts of small insects are here. They see it very differently. Now, what is it that is here? The whole idea is this. You see, actually this, is it green? Green is the color it is throwing out at me. Isn't it? Physics will tell you this, that you see something only according to the electromagnetic radiation it throws out at you. It is throwing out green color, so it's not originally green. I perceive it as green because it threw out that part of the electromagnetic radiation at me. And with this equipment, I saw it as green, but it doesn't hold back the green color. So actually it is not green. So this whole thing has to be grasped, that what I am seeing as an object, to a great extent, it is a contribution of my mind. Name, I gave this tree its name, isn't it? Its color, its form also. All of it, as per my equipment, I perceive it. So once I grasp this, you will understand everything in this world is like that. A lot depends on the equipment with which you perceive it. So then let us work a bit on the equipment, refine it. I will perceive things better and better. So Vedanta is totally committed to getting you self-knowledge. You must remember that. Don't try to use Vedanta in other ways. Now there are, some of my students have asked me this, that if all knowledge is in the Vedas, why isn't objective knowledge of the objective world also in the Vedas? So I told them, you see, the one who will perceive the object, if you have knowledge of that one, doesn't it include the knowledge of the objective world? But if you lose on the subjective knowledge, if you lose on the subject, what you are perceiving without this knowledge is only what your equipment can hold and interpret. That's all you are perceiving. So that is why this knowledge is very important. It should be part and parcel of education. It's not that, we create a course on this and then float that course in some university department. Not like that. Part and parcel of every kind of education should be there should be self-knowledge. Because you must know about yourself first before you understand the world around you. So that is why these texts are important. See, I told you they are very old. This one is Shankaracharya's time, which means 8th century AD. But the subject matter is so relevant even today. Because it's to do with you. And another thing you should remember is the importance of this text. Shankaracharya wrote a number of Prakarana Granthas. You must have heard of them. Aparokshanubhuti is there. This Vivek Chudamani, which they have been discussing, that is there. So many such texts are there. Tattva Bodh, Atma Bodh. What is unique about Laghu Vakya Vritti? Here, he emphasizes on one Mahavakya and analyzes it. Secondly, he has given us the exact technique to Advaita Jnana, to the knowledge of Advaita. See, many texts dwell upon the glory of Advaita, on that knowledge, but may not give you a technique as such. Here he is given it very clearly. How to bring the mind to the state of Nirvikalpa so that you get the knowledge of Advaita. This is very clearly put. So in a way, it is the yogic element has come into Advaita Vedanta as a means towards it. So that's why this is so interesting. You know, these two streams, yoga and Vedanta, mingled, especially after Shankaracharya's time. And so a lot of understanding of Advaita comes even through yoga. Although as philosophies, they are quite different, isn't it? For those of you who have read the Shad Darshan, as philosophies, they are different, but as a psychological approach, they mingle. Because yoga will give you the way to handle the mind in order to arrive at the knowledge of Advaita. So that then it becomes very important. This is how it has been used. So as we go through the verses, you will understand this more and more. As an introduction, you see in this book, Laghu Vakya Vritti itself means a short exposition of Vedic sentences. So it is nothing but a Vedanta in a sense. And the beauty of this Laghu Vakya Vritti is the analysis of Aham Brahmasmi, this Mahavakya. And the exact technique to attain to the state of Advait. The emphasis on that. And all put together by Shankaracharya himself. So he is the greatest authority on Vedanta, isn't it? Because knowledge of this level can only come from a life which is steeped in samadhi-like states, isn't it? Which is steeped in meditation. For them, the utter clarity of their mind will give out texts like this. So it is coming from the very best mind, you can say. So that is what makes it absolutely profound as a text. You must remember, and I don't want to dwell on that because many times we have done it, there are a number of pre-qualifications for Vedanta, which you must have heard. Isn't it? Vivek, Vairagya, the Shat Sampati, the set of 6 qualities which calm the mind, and Mumukshutvam. All these are the pre-qualifications for Vedanta because you see, without a quiet and steady mind, which is free of unnecessary distractions, you will not understand this knowledge. It is so obvious. If the mind is constantly breaking into vrittis and getting carried away by them, how will you know what is the foundation of that thought process? You will never get to it. Only a mind which is able to watch its thought process completely objectively will be able to understand this, which means it is not attached to its thought process, which means fundamentally it is desireless. It has become more conscious than identified with something. This state of mind is very much required for understanding Vedanta. That is why, you know, in all our monasteries, nunneries, ashrams, the greatest emphasis is on the spiritual practice and the primary qualifications, without which this knowledge will not appear real. Long years of practicing that. And then this comes as the fruit of that practice. So you must understand this knowledge is not objective knowledge. Just by my saying it, you are not going to acquire it. It must unfold within you in the first person through your own effort. Then only it becomes yours. So the most important thing then becomes sadhana. Without sadhana, there is no jnana. Even to get a PhD, you have to do so much sadhana, isn't it? Then what to speak of this? So, without sadhana, the sheer profundity of life is lost. Please remember this. Today, all this modern, frivolous ways of living, they will just remove your energy. That's all. Nothing else. You know, in the Kathopanishad, it's very beautifully summed up. Nachiketa says this. Sarvendriyanam jarayanti teja. This is all they do. Your senses are being kept overactive by so much of stimulation around you. So much of media bombardment on you all the time. And so your mind remains engaged in all sorts of silly vrittis. And it will never get this power of analysis unless you learn to keep it free of these modifications. Actually, Vairagya means this. It doesn't mean you run away to the Himalayas or wear a gerua. Vairagya means is you are able to keep distance from the modifications of your mind. So this will naturally bring you to this knowledge, to understanding how relevant it is. Absolutely relevant. You see, the people who come here for these retreats, I am telling you, all of them before they return, they tell us that this was the most important part of their life. Because it is difficult to get this knowledge in the modern world. Unless there is the force of practice, unless there is the purity in the atmosphere, it is difficult. So make the best of your stay here. This is what I am telling you. Don't waste a single minute. Let's go to the first verse. Laghu Vakya Vritti. Sthulo mamsamayo deha sukshma syad vasanamayaha jnana karmendriyai sardham dhi pranau tat shariragau. Okay. Now let us go word by word. Mamsamaya deha is this fleshy body, the body made up of flesh and blood. Syat, this is sthula. It is your gross upadhi or agent. Sukshma vasanamaya, and the subtle aspect of you, the subtle adjunct, is the mind made up of desires. Dhi pranau, the intellect and the vital force, sardham, together with the jnana karmendriyai, with the sensory and motor organs, tat sharirago, going in with that body. They all go with the subtle body. So through these organs of perception, through these motor organs, through your mind, you are functioning in this world. The body is the grossest aspect of you, the outer crust of your personality, you can say, but there's something deeper about you. There's the mind, there's the intelligence. So those of you who have studied the Panchakosha model, you can think how they go. So this is how you are functioning in this world. Let me read the actual meaning of the shlok. The body is the gross adjunct of the Atman, you, and the one made up of desires, together with the organs of perception and action. And the pranas, the intellect and the mind, these constitute the subtle adjunct of you. So he starts with this kind of a picture. Then, you know very well what the jnanendriyas and karmendriyas are, isn't it? The organs of perception, eyes, nose, ears, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, all these are jnanendriyas. And the motor organs, of course, you know, hands and feet, all that, they are, all of these together, they constitute part of your body only, isn't it? And through these, your mind is functioning and understanding the world of objects. So now these are the two aspects of you, they are saying, the gross aspect and the subtle aspect.
So one with the desire, what does that mean?
It means, here it means to say that the vasanamaya, which means the Atman and the gross adjunct of the Atman and the one made up of desires, which is the mind, they together constitute the two aspects of you. Then, Ajnanam Karanam Sakshi, Bodhas Tesham Vibhasakaha, Bodha Bhaso Buddhigata, Karta Syat Punya Papayoho. Now see, they are going a little more deeper. Ajnanam Karanam Bodha. Ignorance is the cause or the causal body adjunct, and Bodha Sakshi. The consciousness is always the witness, and the Vibhasakaha, the supreme illuminator. Tesham Bodha Bhasa Buddhigata. See, Tesham, of them, of the above mentioned adjuncts, Bodha Bhasa, which means the reflection of pure consciousness in the mind. Buddhigata, attached to the intelligence, intellect. See, this is what constitutes the self-conscious being in you, the self-aware being. You can say the Jivatman. Your I sense comes like this. When pure consciousness, the Sakshi, gets reflected in your mind apparatus, then the sense of I arises there. So that's the Jiva. The generic name for all of us is the Jiva. That individual who has an I sense, who's self-aware. But that's not the Atman. That is the reflection of the Atman in the mind of each one of us. If the mind is very dense, the reflection will be very feeble. If the mind is very clear, the reflection will be Sphuran. Aham Sphuran it is called. Very clear. So this is the Buddhigata Bodhabhas Syat, and Karta, he is the agent. This Jiva is the agent of Papa Punya Yoho, of all the good and evil that you do. So agentship, enjoyership, doership, all this naturally comes when the I sense arises in the intellect due to the reflection of the light of the Atman in the mind. Is this correct? Does it make sense? This is what is happening in each one of us. See, if you just track where from the I arises, what is it in me that says I? It is not the body, because body is an object of your perception. It never says I, but you say I am the body. Look at the strange thing here. The body does not say I, but I say I am the body, which means what? Yes, it is an object of my perception. It is completely an object. You can study it. That's what medical science is about, isn't it? Like an object, you are studying your own body. Today, even in operations on the heart and all, the patient can actually see what is happening, how he is being operated. So the point is, the body is always an object of your perception. It is yours. It can't be you. Isn't it? Obviously. Something that is an object to you, how can it be you? But we miss this point by non-investigation. See, the nature of identification is like this. It is always non-investigation. When you don't analyze properly, you will identify. When you identify, you will create confusion. This is the nature of identities. You know, all the quarrels in the world are due to identities. Am I right? In gross and subtle forms, all the wars we have fought are due to identities, either regional identities or our borders or national identities, anything, or about ideologies which are mental identities, getting fixed in your thoughts. So all our quarrels and misunderstandings and everything negative about us is due to our identities. When you don't have a global identity, you will only keep fighting all your life. Fighting on a smaller level, on the individual level, it is friction with others, it is blaming others, it is playing the blame game always, it is labeling others. All this will keep going on. See what nonsense we manufacture by not getting self-knowledge first. Identity has its own place in the Vyavaharika Satya, in the transactional world. But it is not the ultimate thing about you. Your real identity lies elsewhere. A little bit of this knowledge, that is why it is very much required. Whether you are interested or not, whether you want to know it or not, it is mandatory, because you will not identify yourself rightly without self-knowledge. You will have only these small little identities, and so always clashing, like billiard balls, you know. Swamiji used to say this. We are like billiard balls. They are always knocking each other out. So this is what we are doing in a bigger way. So you see, this is how the Jiva, the individual self, individual entity comes into being. How does he come into being? When the supreme consciousness of Brahman, pure awareness or Atman, gets reflected in the mind, and a sense of I arises, who claims to be the doer of action and the enjoyer of the fruits of actions, Karta and Bhokta, then the sense of individuality rises. So it is an assumption, isn't it? See, when you look at yourself in the lake, do you start saying, that is me, I will only work for that? Do you do that? Do we do that? No. Why? It's a reflection. So same thing is happening in your head. But you are thinking that jivahood, that sense of that individuality, I am so special. Today, you have to tell all kids that they are very special, otherwise they don't grow to their full capacity. Yes, we have become like that. If you tell them the fact about the self, they will naturally become special. But no, we have to boost their ego, otherwise there's every likelihood of their going into negative states and depression and whatnot. So we are reducing ourselves to these levels for the simple reason there is no self-knowledge, no penetration into the real. So the unreal will be all that you will have to explore in this world. So this is a very strange situation, because I'll tell you my own experience. Everywhere in the world, they are only asking for this. They are only seeking this through all their science and technology and all their discoveries, and the entire human civilizations are only asking for this. But because it's not coming so readily, because of lack of, discipline, sadhana, all this, the senses are outward turned, mind is distracted. So there's no first person experience of this. So they are investing in all of that. They are only asking for this. So that's the beauty of this knowledge, Let's just read out the meaning of the second mantra. Ignorance makes the causal adjunct. See, the whole thing is happening because of ignorance, according to Vedanta, which means there's a veil on our mind, which is called Maya, and which is responsible for hiding the truth of our being. We consider that reflected light of awareness to be I. What is not I is taken as I. And as if that was not bad enough, we are very proud of that I. I am such an achiever, I am this, I can do this, I can do that. You can do anything. But without the discovery of the self, you will remain only a partially functioning sort of agent in this world, and a confused being. Confused almost about everything because your real identity is undiscovered. You may assume as many identities as you want and play as many roles as you want, but you are still only the actor. You have not discovered who you are. See, an actor his life has meaning only because he knows he is not what he is portraying himself to be, and he goes back home to be himself. If he never knew who he really was and only had to keep playing all his life, how miserable his life would be. That's what is happening to us. We are only playing roles, and we are taking up all sorts of identities without self-knowledge. That's why we are so tired of life, tired of people, tired of family. You are actually tired of your ignorance about the self. And what solutions you find? Getaways. You are only trying to get away from your mind. But even if you go on long, great getaways somewhere, Hawaii Island or anywhere you may go, your mind is going to go with you. So we better make the correction within ourselves. That's the only way. So that's why these verses, see, pure consciousness stands behind them all the agents, as the witness and the illuminator. The reflection of the pure consciousness on the intellect, acquiring the sense of individuality due to ignorance, becomes the jiva, the agent of good and evil. So you see, this is how we are born. And when we celebrate our birthdays, we celebrate, all of us, we are so proud. Is the earth proud of us? 50 years we lived on the earth. What did we contribute? 50 years. Say we are 50-year-old. And we are celebrating our birthdays every year. That also when you celebrate your birthday, you only celebrate your jivahood. you are coming into individual existence, you are not celebrating your selfhood. So that celebration only comes when you get self-knowledge. That will be your real birthday, isn't it? It will be worth celebrating. Until then, we are celebrating our ignorance and we don't mind it. So, getting this knowledge, that is why it's so important. See, Chidabhas is an important word in Vedanta. It means the reflected awareness in your mind. If you just sit in meditation, you will understand that you are aware all the time. But don't think this is the Atman. This is the reflected awareness in your mind. You can feel it. Before you start thinking, emoting, you can feel a sense of awareness in your mind. This is the Chidabhas, the reflected awareness of the Sakshi in your mind. So now you see how he builds on this. Then he says, Sa eva samsaret karma vashat lokadvaye sada bodha bhasa shuddha bodham vivichyadi ati yatnataha. He says, he, that is Sa is he, the Jivatman, eva, verily, sada, samsaret, he always migrates or moves between what? Between birth and death. See, the Jiva, the individual, these are the 2 points in which you live, birth and death. Lokadvaye, and the here and the hereafter. Between these two, he keeps migrating. Karma vashat, under the impulsion of your actions. Because every action has a karma phal. According to that, you experience life. That is why he says, Shankaracharya says, so vivichyat, so one should discriminate Shuddha Bodham from Bodha Bhasa. The pure awareness from the reflected awareness, so that you know that you are always liberated. You are always apart from this reflected light in your mind, which is considering itself to be an individual entity, the Jiva. You are always apart from that. And ati yatnataha, with great effort, supreme effort and great dedication, sadhana, you must make this distinction between the reflected awareness and the pure consciousness that you are. So what is the reflected awareness called? Chidabhas or bodhabhas. जो बोध का आभास देता है वो. And what is the pure consciousness called? Chit Sakshi. Here he uses the word Sakshi or Shuddha Bodh, the pure knowledge or pure consciousness. So that is why you must make this distinction, he says. Otherwise you will assume the Chidabhas to be you. Very interesting, no?
Isn't it intellect also?
See, in yoga psychology, we use the word chit even to indicate memory. Chitta, chittam it is called. But here when we use the word chit, it is pure awareness, which is the Atman. So here he is clearly telling us that you must distinguish between the Shuddha Bodha and the Bodhabhas.
Who becomes aware of it?
Very good. See, who will become aware of this distinction, this discrimination? It is only when you step into pure awareness, pure consciousness, you will understand that, oh, I was functioning as this reflected awareness. I got identified with the Bodhabhas. It's also called Chidabhas.
Won't it be the pure mind that will determine?
Pure mind. Pure mind.
Mind is pure consciousness.
Yes. See, this formula Sri Ramakrishna himself has given us. Pure mind is equal to pure Atman. The purer and clearer the mind, the more it will understand, oh, I got identified with this reflected awareness in my mind. I am not that actually. So that is what enlivens the modifications of your mind and makes you identify with body, objects, all this. So a man starts thinking that whatever he collects from the outside is his. You see, our homes, whatever it is, our cars, our jewelry, whatever you have with you, there's a sense of personal identity with that. This comes from this reflected awareness. Once I am identified as a Jiva, whatever belongs to me is mine. Sri Ramakrishna used to say this, I and mine is ignorance. Because of the lack of this analysis, we do this. See, in the Vyavaharika world, which means in the transactional world, it is important for you. But don't think it is of ultimate importance, because after a few years, all this will it will not matter to you. For most people, it's not even death which separates them from all this. Even when you grow old, your own children will not give that meaning to things which you have given. They help you understand this very well, that your meaning was your interpretation, your view of life, your perception, and it is not the actual thing. So it is only self-knowledge that has no modification in it, no change in it. That alone is the real you. Everything else is made up in your mind based on the priority you have given to it. You prioritize as per your desires, not as per the reality of things. Isn't it? Yes. It's our desires that actually direct our life. So that is why you see the fundamental prerequisite for Vedanta becomes clear up your mind. Stop all these modifications and the processes of desire. Then only you will understand reality as it is. It is Brahman itself actually. But I am seeing it as objects of possession. So only Vedanta can take you to this level, I am telling you. It is the more you dive into Vedanta, you see, for people like you, I am really telling you, the more you dive into it, the more blissful your mind will become. You will not ask for anything more. You bring all objects into your life, no harm, but you must have this fundamental detachment so that tomorrow if they go also, it's fine. I'm fine. I'm not running after them all my life. This only Vedanta can do for you. It puts you on your own feet and gives you this deep inner strength to face life as it is and live happily and blissfully. So we will stop here. I think time is up and we'll continue tomorrow. Every day 3 verses. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.